The human woke slowly, his head heavy, his mouth dry. When his eyes opened, he did not see the familiar walls of his home, nor the dark sky filled with stars. Instead, he found himself surrounded by a strange prison. It was not made of iron or steel. The walls of his cage were glowing beams of pure energy, humming like a swarm of bees. Every time he moved too close, the bars sparked with light, warning him not to test them. Beyond the cage stretched a vast chamber of alien metal, tall arches, polished black floors, and strange lights moving across the ceiling. He sat there weak, bruised, and lost. But then he saw her. At the far side of the chamber, the alien queen entered. She was taller than any human, her form elegant yet terrifying. Her skin shimmered with silver patterns that looked alive, flowing like rivers under her flesh. Her eyes burned bright yellow, sharp and piercing like suns hidden in shadow. Her crown was not of gold but bone. Fused into her head like nature itself had crowned her ruler of all. She stopped in front of his cage, her presence filling the air like a storm. "So," she said, her voice deep and echoing, as though many voices spoke through her. "This is the human they call resistant, a soldier who would not bend even when his city burned." The man swallowed, his throat aching. He wanted to speak, but his body felt heavy. Still, he forced himself to raise his head. The queen studied him with eyes both curious and cold. Her empire had conquered countless worlds. Civilizations far older and stronger than Earth had knelt before her. Yet these humans, small and fragile, were different. They fought even when there was no hope. They rose again after every defeat. They were stubborn in a way she had never seen. Finally, she leaned closer, her gaze pressing against him like a weight. "You are weak. Your kind is weak. Why do you resist us? Why do you fight when surrender would give you life?" Her words echoed in the vast chamber. The guards around her waited for his reply, their weapons gleaming, their faces unreadable. The man coughed, pain shaking his body. Yet when he spoke, his voice carried something no chain could silence. Because survival without freedom is not life at all. The chamber fell silent. The queen's burning eyes widened just slightly. It was not anger that moved in her heart. It was something else, something she had not felt for centuries. Surprise. She stepped back, her clawed fingers brushing the glowing bars of the cage. Her mind raced. She had heard screams, curses, and pleas for mercy from prisoners before. But never this. The human did not look away. His eyes were tired, shadowed with pain, yet they were steady. There was no fear left in them. He had already lost everything. His home, his people, his world. Yet inside him burned something the queen could not crush. "What foolishness is this?" she asked, her voice sharp. "You would rather die than kneel? You would throw away your short, fragile existence for nothing?" The man's lips curved in a faint, broken smile. "Not for nothing," he whispered. "For freedom, for hope, for tomorrow." Her chest tightened, though she could not explain why. For centuries, she had believed fear was the strongest chain. Fear had built her empire, fear had silenced galaxies. But here, before her, stood a being too fragile to fight and too broken to run, yet unyielding. The queen turned away sharply, her cloak sweeping behind her. But no matter how she tried to dismiss it, his words stayed inside her, like a seed planted in dark soil. And though she would never admit it to her guards, the mighty alien queen felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Doubt. The chamber was silent long after the human's words faded. The alien queen stood motionless, her golden eyes fixed on the fragile figure inside the glowing cage. Her guards shifted uncomfortably, unsure if their ruler would strike the human down or laugh at his foolish courage. But she did neither. Instead, the queen dismissed them with a wave of her hand. The soldiers obeyed at once, their heavy footsteps echoing against the polished floor until the chamber was empty. Now it was only the queen and the human, two beings from different worlds facing one another in the great hall. The queen stepped closer, her tall shadow falling across the glowing bars. "You speak of freedom," she said slowly, her voice sharp like a blade. "But freedom is an illusion. You live, you serve, you die. That is the way of all life. Why should humans be different?" The human lifted his head, pain clear in his eyes, yet his voice was steady. "Because we choose," he said softly. "Even when everything is taken from us, we still choose. That is something you cannot steal." The queen tilted her head, studying him like one might study a strange star. His body was frail, his skin marked by bruises, his clothes torn. By all logic, he should have been broken. Yet something inside him still burned. Choice, she repeated, almost tasting the word. You claim this? Choice is stronger than my power? Than my empire that spans 1,000 suns? The man gave a faint, weary smile. Yes, empires fall. Power fades. But choice. Choice lives in every human heart. You can burn our cities, but you cannot burn the will to be free. For a long moment, the queen said nothing. His words stirred memories she did not want to remember. Long ago, before she wore the crown of bone, before she was called queen, she had once been young. She too had lived under the shadow of a ruler, obeying without question. Her rise to power had been built on blood, on fear, on endless conquest. She had not thought of those days in centuries. But now, this fragile human was dragging them back into her mind. Her claws tapped lightly against the energy bars, a sound sharp in the silence. You are strange, human, she admitted. Others I have taken screamed, begged, or cursed me. But you, she narrowed her eyes. You speak as if you are already free, even in chains. The man's chest rose and fell with a tired sigh. That is the truth. You can lock my body, but you cannot cage my mind. You cannot chain the dream of freedom, not mine. Not my people's. The queen's gaze sharpened. Your people are broken. Your armies shattered. Your leaders dead. What dream can survive in ashes? The man's eyes glistened, but his voice grew stronger. Dreams live in us. One falls, another carries it. A father tells his child. A soldier tells his brother. Even in ashes, we carry hope forward. That is why we resist. The queen stepped back slightly, her heart heavy with something she had not felt in centuries. Confusion. She had ruled so long, so absolutely, that she had forgotten what it meant to doubt. Her empire had been built on the belief that fear was stronger than any dream. Yet this human stood before her, fragile but unyielding, and proved otherwise. Her voice softened, though it still carried power. You would die for this a dream? The man's answer was quiet, but every syllable struck like thunder. Yes, the queen stared at him, her golden eyes flickering. She could crush him with a thought. She could silence his voice forever. Yet deep inside a strange unease grew. For the first time in a very long time, she wondered if her empire's strength was as eternal as she believed. She turned away, her cloak whispering across the cold floor. Rest, human. We will speak again. As she left the chamber, her mind was restless. His words followed her like shadows. For the great alien queen, feared across galaxies, something dangerous had begun to awaken. The human sat in silence after the queen left. The cage still hummed softly, glowing with strange energy, but his mind was far away. His body was weak, his breath shallow, yet his heart carried memories stronger than pain. He remembered the night the sky burned. The ships had come like falling stars, black and endless, filling the heavens until no starlight was left. The ground shook as fire rained down. Cities crumbled, the air filled with screams. He remembered holding his younger sister's hand, pulling her through smoke and rubble, promising he would not let go. But he had. Not by choice, by force. Soldiers of the queen had torn her away, dragging him in one direction and her in another. He never saw her again. That memory cut him deeper than any wound. Even now, locked in this cage of light, he could still hear her small voice calling his name. His eyes stung, but he did not cry. He could not afford tears, not here. Not before the enemy. Far above in her chamber, the alien queen also remembered fire. Not Earth's fire, but another world long ago. She had stood then as a child, watching her people bow to a tyrant. She had seen her mother's eyes filled with fear every time the ruler passed. She had sworn that one day she would rise above fear, that none would ever rule her again. And she had. Through cunning, blood, and endless battles, she had seized the throne. She had built an empire across the stars. Entire civilizations bowed before her. Fear was her crown, power her language. She had become everything she once hated. But now, this fragile human's words scratched at the walls she had built inside her heart. Dreams, choice, freedom. These things had meant nothing to her for centuries. Yet when he spoke them, they stirred something she thought long dead. The next day she returned to the chamber. The human was awake, sitting against the wall of his cage. His face looked pale, but his eyes still burned with that same quiet fire. You humans are strange, the queen said as she approached. I destroyed your armies. I shattered your world. Still you resist. Why? The man lifted his gaze. His voice was soft but steady. Because resistance is not only for winning. Sometimes it is for remembering. For telling the universe we were here, we fought, we mattered. The queen's brow furrowed. You fight knowing you will lose? Yes, he nodded slowly. Because losing with dignity is better than living in chains. If even one of us resists, then hope survives, and hope is stronger than fear. Her claws twitched at his words. Fear had built her throne. Fear had given her everything. But what if he was right? What if hope was stronger? She stepped closer, her towering figure casting a shadow over him. Your world burns. Your people scatter, and yet you still cling to hope. Tell me, human, what do you hope for now? His lips trembled, and for a moment pain flickered in his eyes. But then he answered, his voice heavy with memory. I hope that somewhere my sister is still alive. I hope she remembers what I told her, that no matter what happens, no matter who takes her, she must never stop believing in tomorrow. The queen's chest tightened at his words. She remembered her own mother's voice, whispering comfort in the darkness long ago. She had buried that memory, buried it under power and conquest. Yet now this human's fragile hope tore the past open again. She turned her face away, hiding the flicker of weakness in her eyes. You are foolish, she said sharply. Dreams cannot stop armies. Hope cannot shield against fire. The man gave a faint smile. Maybe, but they can outlive them. For the first time in centuries, the queen did not have an answer. She felt something she had not felt since childhood, standing powerless before a tyrant. She felt small, and as she left the chamber once more, she realized something dangerous was growing inside her. The human was not breaking under her power. She was breaking under his words. The alien queen returned the next day, her steps echoing in the vast chamber. She had not slept the night before. The human's words clung to her mind like vines, tightening whenever she tried to pull them away. Dreams, hope, freedom. These were not the weapons she had ever feared, yet they unsettled her more than fleets of warships. She had faced rebellions before. Blades, guns, bombs, those she could crush easily. But this fragile human spoke of something that could not be chained. And that frightened her in a way she could not admit. The man looked up as she entered. He was still weak, his body leaning against the wall of his cage, but his eyes met hers with steady fire. He did not bow. He did not beg. The queen stopped before the glowing bars. She raised a clawed hand, and with a wave, the energy cage dissolved into sparks. The human blinked, stunned. For the first time since his capture, he was free to step outside. The guards shifted nervously, their hands on their weapons. It was unthinkable. No prisoner had ever been released in the queen's presence. But she silenced them with a single glance. She turned her gaze back to the man. You speak of choice, she said coldly. Then I give you a choice now. Step out, stand before me. Show me the strength of this freedom you claim to have. For a moment, the man did not move. His legs trembled when he tried to rise. His body screamed in protest, weak from hunger and wounds. But slowly, painfully, he pushed himself up. His hands shook as he steadied himself against the glowing wall that was no longer there. Step by step, he walked forward. Each movement looked like it might be his last, yet he did not stop. The guards stared in disbelief as the fragile human left the cage and stood before their queen. He was small compared to her towering figure. His clothes were torn, his skin pale, but he stood tall, his back straight. And when he looked into her golden eyes, there was no fear. I don't need to fight you, he said softly, his voice carrying through the chamber. I only need to stand. The queen narrowed her eyes. She had expected him to collapse or lash out in anger, but he simply stood, fragile yet unyielding. Something twisted in her chest. You should kneel, she hissed. All others kneel before me. The man shook his head. His voice was quiet, but each word cut like a blade. Kneeling means I have given up. Standing means I am still free even if I die. Her guards gasped, horrified at his defiance. No one had ever spoken to their queen this way and lived. Their fingers twitched on their weapons, but the queen raised her hand, stopping them. She stepped closer, towering above him. You dare stand against me? I could kill you with one strike. Maybe, the man answered. His lips curled into the faintest smile. But killing me won't silence what I've said. It will only make my words louder. Others will carry them. That is the power you cannot crush, the queen froze. His words struck her deeper than any blade. Fear had always silenced her enemies. Yet this human was not silenced. Even here, facing death, he chose defiance. The chamber grew heavy with silence. The guards shifted uneasily, unable to believe what they were witnessing. The queen's claws flexed, her body tense with fury. And something else. respect. For centuries she had ruled through terror, believing it unbreakable. But here stood a fragile creature proving her wrong. He had no weapons, no army, no power, and yet she could not defeat him. At last she spoke, her voice low, almost trembling. "You are dangerous." The man's answer came without hesitation. "No, I am just human." The words echoed in her mind, sinking deeper than she wanted to admit. And though she turned away, hiding her face from her guards, the alien queen knew the truth. For the first time in her reign, she was not the one in control. The chamber was colder than before, though no wind touched its walls. The alien queen stood tall, her crown of bone gleaming under the lights, her presence filling the air like thunder. In front of her, the human remained standing, fragile but unbending. For a long time, neither spoke. The guards waited nervously, their hands ready on their weapons, their eyes darting between the queen and the defiant man who dared to face her without bowing. At last, the queen broke the silence. Her voice was low, dangerous. "You should fear me. Every world I have touched trembles at my name. Entire species kneel without question. Even the strongest fall before me. And yet you stand here as if I am nothing." The man's lips curled into a faint smile, though his body trembled from weakness. "I do fear you," he admitted softly. "Only a fool would not. But fear does not rule me. It never has." Her eyes narrowed. "Then what rules you, human? What makes you resist when you know resistance is hopeless?" "Hope," he said simply. The queen scoffed, her sharp laugh echoing like metal striking stone. "Hope? Hope cannot stop fire. Hope cannot stop blades. Hope cannot stop me." The human's eyes did not leave hers. "Maybe not. But hope can outlive you. You can kill me here and now, but my words will remain. My people will remember. My sister will remember. And as long as one human remembers, you have not won." The queen's claws twitched, anger rising inside her. For centuries, fear had been her greatest weapon. It had crushed warriors, silenced rulers, and bent galaxies to her will. But here was this fragile creature trembling on weak legs, and still he spoke of hope as if it was stronger than her empire. "You speak as if your kind is eternal," she hissed. "But I have seen your world burn. I have seen your armies break. I have seen your leaders beg for mercy." The man's face darkened with grief, but his voice carried steel. "Yes, we have fallen. We have bled. We have lost more than I can say. But do you know why we rise again, Queen?" He drew in a shaky breath. "Because we are human. We fall so that we may rise stronger. We break so that we may heal together. You can crush our bodies, but you cannot crush what lives inside us." The chamber went still. Even the guards, trained to obey without thought, felt a chill at his words. The queen stepped closer, towering above him, her golden eyes burning. "Do not think your courage impresses me. You are alone here. No one will hear your words. No one will carry your dream." The man looked up, his smile faint but certain. "You already carry it," the queen froze. Her heart, so used to coldness, beat faster in her chest. She wanted to deny it, to strike him down, to silence him. But deep inside, she knew he was right. His words had already rooted inside her. She could not forget them. Fury rose in her throat, but it was not the clean fury of power. It was the desperate anger of someone who felt threatened, not by armies, but by truth. "You are dangerous," she whispered again, her claws trembling at her side. "I am only human," he replied, "and that is enough." The guards shifted uneasily. They had seen the queen face rebels, kings, and warlords. Never had she hesitated. Never had she looked so shaken. She turned sharply, her cloak sweeping behind her, hiding the storm in her eyes. She did not want her soldiers to see the weakness that had crept into her heart. As she left the chamber, one thought burned in her mind. This fragile human standing on shaking legs had shaken her more than 1,000 battles, and that was something her empire had never prepared her for. The alien queen could not escape the human's words. They followed her into her throne room, into her private chamber, even into her restless dreams. She had faced warriors stronger than him, leaders wiser than him, and enemies more dangerous than him. Yet none had unsettled her this way. He was only a man, weak, trembling, half broken. But his voice carried something sharper than blades, something heavier than armies, and it was tearing at her. The next day, she returned to him. The chamber was silent, the cage gone, though guards still surrounded the room. The human sat on the floor, his body weary but his spirit unbroken. He lifted his head when she entered, his tired eyes meeting hers without fear. The queen stopped a few steps away, her gaze burning. "Tell me, human," she began slowly, her voice heavy with command. "If I gave you one choice, serve me and live in comfort, or refuse and die here in this place, what would you choose?" The guards leaned forward, waiting. The entire chamber held its breath. The man's answer came without hesitation. "I would rather die free than live as a slave." His words struck her like lightning. The chamber shook with silence. Her guards gasped, their eyes wide. None had ever spoken such defiance to her face. None had dared. The queen stepped closer, her shadow covering him. "You would throw away your life so easily? Life is the most precious gift. You could have safety, peace, even luxury under me, and you would choose death instead?" The man's voice was quiet but steady. "Safety without freedom is not peace. Luxury without choice is not life. What is the point of breathing if every breath belongs to you and not to me?" The queen's claws flexed at her side. His words tore through her like blades. She wanted to laugh, to call him foolish, to crush him for his arrogance, but she could not. His voice was too honest, too raw, too real. She leaned closer, her golden eyes burning into his. "Do you not fear the end? Do you not fear the nothingness that comes after death?" The man swallowed, pain flickering in his gaze, but he did not look away. "Of course I fear it. Every human fears death, but fear does not rule us. What matters is what we leave behind. If I die free, then I leave behind a spark, and someone somewhere will carry that spark forward. That is worth more than living on my knees." The queen's chest tightened. His words awakened memories she had long buried. She remembered her mother whispering in the dark, telling her that freedom was worth any price. She had forgotten those words when she took the throne, when she built her empire on fear. But now, hearing them again from this fragile human, the old wound inside her throbbed. Her voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "You would choose death, knowing it will be painful, knowing it will be alone." The man's faint smile returned. His body was broken, yet his spirit glowed brighter than ever. "Yes, because dying free means my soul is mine, and that is something you can never take." The chamber felt heavier, as if the air itself was trembling with the weight of his words. The guards looked at their queen, unsure if she would kill him or kneel before him. The queen straightened, her claws curling into fists. Her empire had been built on one truth: fear was the strongest chain. Yet here, before her, stood proof that fear could be broken. She had asked him the hardest question, life or freedom, and his answer had shaken her throne more than any rebellion ever could. The alien queen stood in silence, her golden eyes locked on the fragile human before her. His words still echoed in the chamber, sinking deep into her heart. "I would rather die free than live as a slave." She had expected him to beg for mercy, to tremble at the thought of death. She had expected him to break like so many before him. But instead, he stood unbroken, his body weak but his spirit untouchable. For the first time in her long reign, the queen felt something she could not name. It was not anger. It was not victory. It was something far more dangerous. It was doubt. Her guards shifted nervously, their eyes darting between their queen and the human. They had never seen hesitation in her. They had never seen her silent after a prisoner's words. For centuries her will had been law, her voice absolute. Yet now she stood frozen. The queen turned away, trying to hide the storm inside her. She had conquered countless worlds. She had broken kings, crushed armies, silenced prophets. But this one man, standing on shaking legs, had done what none of them could. He had unsettled her soul. "You are a fool," she said at last, though her voice lacked its usual steel. "You will die here, and your people will never know your name." The man's lips curved into a faint smile. "Maybe, but they will know my choice, and my choice will live on even if I do not." His words were like fire in her veins. She wanted to silence him, to strike him down, to end the storm he had brought into her mind. Yet she could not, because deep inside she knew he spoke the truth. Her empire was built on fear, but fear could not erase hope. Fear could not erase choice. The queen stepped closer again, towering above him, her claws sharp, her voice trembling with conflict. "Do you not understand, human? I could end you now. I could crush your bones and scatter your ashes. No one would remember you." The human looked up at her, his eyes steady. "You would remember." The queen froze. Those 3 words pierced deeper than any weapon. He was right. No matter what she did, she would never forget him. His face, his words, his defiance, they would remain in her heart like a scar. She turned sharply, her cloak sweeping behind her. She could not let her guard see the weakness in her eyes, but as she walked away, the truth followed her like a shadow. The human had won, not with strength, not with weapons, not with armies. He had won with something far greater, his unbreakable spirit. In her private chamber, the queen sat upon her throne, her mind restless. The voices of her empire spoke in her head, voices of power, conquest, and obedience. Yet behind them another voice whispered, the voice of the human. Dying free means my soul is mine. Killing me won't silence what I've said. You already carry it. She clenched her fists, her claws digging into her throne. For centuries she had believed she was invincible, but now she realized the truth. The true danger was not human weapons. It was not their armies. It was their hearts. Humans were dangerous because they could not be broken. The queen closed her eyes, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. She knew her empire would continue. Her armies would march, her fleets would burn the skies. But deep inside, a seed had been planted, a seed of doubt. And seeds once planted could grow into forests that even empires could not destroy. The next day, when she entered the chamber, she did not speak. She only looked at the human. He was weaker now, his body failing, but his eyes still glowed with that same quiet fire. For the first time in centuries, the mighty alien queen lowered her gaze. You are human, she whispered. And in that moment she finally understood why her empire feared his kind so deeply. Not because they were strong, not because they were many, but because they were unbreakable.